the Facebook page and double check, make sure it's only doing horizontal. We're back live. What's up, my beautiful tree people? My name is Matt Latham. I am a board certified master arborist. I'm like shaking the camera like crazy here, y'all. I'm so sorry. We're gonna get to this. I wanted to start tonight a little bit different. I wanted to talk to you kind of about diagnostics because we have had some crazy answers going on. Where is it? This I got, first of all, like my hat's all sorts of off. My 3-year-old, by the way, gave me this hat and I love it. It's my favorite hat on this planet. He gave this to me when we basically had nothing. And anyways, y'all don't care about that. What you care about is getting your tree questions answered. So let me pull this up because I wrote a little script, and this is really important to me because, quite frankly, this is not diagnosing a tree is not like the WebMD version of trees. What it is, there's actually a specific set of standards on how to diagnose a tree. Believe it or not, these are codified into ANSI. These are codified into ISA best management practices, or BMPs. And you can't just like stare at a branch, shrug, and say like, I don't know, it looks like fungus. If only it were that easy, I'd be retired on a beach somewhere getting paid to diagnose palm trees. I'd be like, fungus, you know, phytoplasma, whatever. It's not that simple. Just like the doctor doesn't go in and be like, oh, you have a cough? It must be COVID. It's not how life works. Well, we don't talk about that, Lucas, but yeah, y'all are funny. It's really not that simple. And so, unfortunately, diagnostics has become somewhat of an art form that has been lost. And so you get things like WebMD, you get things like AI and such that you can just go on. Anybody with a keyboard can type in their question and they can get some BS answer. And it's not that simple. The thing is, real diagnostics to any type of arboriculture problem, just like in humans, really involves a whole series of diagnostic tools. And in arboriculture, I go by 3 things in particular. One is observation, one is history, and then the last and maybe the most important, arguably, is the science behind it. And if any of these things are missing, you're not actually getting a diagnosis. What you're getting. Ooh, I love comments. Hold on. What you're getting is not a diagnosis. What you're getting is a is an educated guess, and that's not good because guessing is more for scratch off tickets, not so much for healthcare, and certainly not for tree healthcare. So let's go into it. So first and foremost is observation. We talked about. I don't mean just like looking at the canopy, right? It's more than that. We're talking like a full tree assessment. We're talking looking at the crown, looking at the trunk, looking at the root flares or the root collar, the soil, the site conditions, moisture levels, exposure to various elements like weed and feed type products and chemicals, any type of like recent construction, like if you had a sidewalk put in. That's good. That assuming it's right next to your tree, that's going to negatively impact your tree. Any type of pest, any type of pathogen, like everything. Trees talk, right? Believe it or not, they don't talk like you and I talk. We're talking in the English language. Maybe you're seeing this on some sort of dub over on some other language, but like realistically, we're using words to communicate. Trees don't talk. I don't care what type of religion you're into. If you're into some sort of paganism and you think trees are sentient or whatever, that's fine. They're not. First of all, I've had a lot of interactions with trees. They only bark at me. Get it? See, fun tree pun there. They don't talk in the sense that you and I talk. Now, you might have heard the term wood wide web. That's very real. What's that?
You're kind of lagging really bad on YouTube.
Great. All the children. We need to figure out a different time for this because all the children get home right at this time. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Anyways, academic, by the way, I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to get to your question here in just a minute. I want to go over these things That is absolutely critical. Trees don't talk in the sense that you and I talk. They do release electrochemical stimuli to communicate to one another. It's very true, but they don't have the ability to talk to us humans. I worked with this one guy, and he used to say, "Well, the human didn't call the tree care company. The tree inspired the human to call the tree care company." I'm sorry, but that's BS. That's just simply not true. Now, we as humans can look at the tree and say, hey, the tree's not doing well, and call the professional. That's very true. So we got observation. We can look at things. We can determine the body language of the tree. By the way, it's a great book if you ever want to get really into a deep dive. Is trees do talk in their body language. They communicate to us what's going on. But the next most important thing is the history. And this is one that often goes overlooked, especially if you're buying a new property and you get in, you got a tree that you've inherited. Maybe it's 100 years old, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 500 years old. There's a lot of history that you don't know, but sometimes you got a good decade or 2 decades or 3 decades worth of history. And what's going to help me as a diagnostician, as a forensics arborist, is me first of all, me doing my job well and asking the right questions, but also you telling me the history of the tree. What's your irrigation schedule? Are there any factors that may change? Has there been any construction in the last 5 years? Has there been any cars that have driven over the root system and maybe compacted that soil down to a very tight scenario that squeezes out all the oxygen in the soil? Are there chemical applications? Do you use weed and feed? You know, the most popular one, of course, by numbers, is Scott's Turf Builder. All right, y'all see me now? Test check, microphone check. Let's see if this works, guys. I'm sorry, we've been having all kinds of tech issues. And quite frankly, I do not have a lot of time tonight. So we're going to get through this best we can, you guys. And I appreciate y'all being here with us. So what are we about? Almost halfway through with the live stream. And I've like barely got anything done. Where'd I go? Hello. What's up, guys? Yeah, this is the last time I let my son get on the internet while I'm live streaming, by the way. Sorry.
Also, we didn't mention the issue where people posting and what we're going to allow and not allow.
We'll talk about that. All right. So, all right, we talked about the observations. What do we see? What do we know from a history standpoint, and what can science tell us? We want to know pathogen IDs. We want to know specific epithets of the actual pathogen attacking the tree. Is it a fungus? Is it a beetle, etc.? These are tools that really separate the certified professionals from the guys that show up with a chainsaw and a lot of gung-ho, a lot of enthusiasm. Because I actually, here's a fun story for you. I talked to a guy and I worked with a guy, I contracted with him. I made a whopping $120 a day working with this guy. This is one of my first contract gigs where I was making like the big bucks. And that was actually a huge increase to my pay at the time. And I remember he's talking to this guy, Matt White. And that's a pseudonym actually. So that's not his real name, but he was talking to the client. And I remember climbing this Chinese pistachio in the backyard. It was a decent sized Chinese pistachio. We were able to climb it and do some work on it, but it had a big red, orangish, purplish mushroom at the base. And the client comes out and they say, you know, I noticed that mushroom at the base of it. What is that? And without hesitation, it blew my mind. I was talking to this with some other fellow professionals in the industry earlier. He said, well, that's Xander rot. The tree's going to die soon and he's come down. And of course, the client just believed him because what do they know? Now, for those of you that know, Xander rot is not a real thing. That's not a real fungus. It's not a real mushroom. He literally made that up on the spot. And I asked him about it later and I said, hey, what's Xander rot? He's like, man, I don't know. I just had to say something. And the client needed an answer. So I gave him the answer. That was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, that's crazy. But that is a lot of what we get in our industry is a lot of speculation, a lot of BS, a lot of guys that just don't actually know what they're doing. And unfortunately, they are the governing authority, at least in the mind of the client. So what we're doing, we'll walk through some real life examples. I'll show you some things and some approaches that I would take as a BCMA, as a registered consulting arborist. So it doesn't matter really whether you're a homeowner, tree professional. This is the stuff that keeps trees alive and people from getting ripped off from weird guys like my boy Matt White. And it's, we don't go by like crystal balls. We don't go by second guessing or guessing rather. We don't like, hey, it looks like fungus. Like what we like to do in this group, at least, is we go off of the science. We go off the experience that many of us professionals have. And quite frankly, a whole lot of nerdiness, y'all. I'm a big old tree nerd. So let's get into your questions. I do want to preface this one thing. We've had some really wonky posts here lately. That's to be expected, quite frankly. I'm not opposed to that. But let me switch over to the live stream here, y'all, just for 1 second. All right. Sorry for the issues, by the way. Yeah, Lucas, that's a really good point. We've had some crazy lag issues. I don't know what's going on. But we've had some really crazy posts here as of late. And this is kind of what inspired me to even have this conversation with you guys, is Mr. Douglas Parker over here from Aubrey, Texas, posted this beautiful 3-dimensional photo. That's, by the way, that is a really good way to send that. 3D is awesome. If you've got an iPhone, it has LiDAR in it, and you can make those cool 3-dimensional images. Super cool technology. We're actually working on categorizing and cataloging a lot of fungus and a lot of different trees as a result of some cool technology like that. But Mr. Parker here posted a picture, and one of the first things I noticed, somebody goes on there instantaneously and they say, hey, that's hypoxylin. Well, guess what, guys? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is a misdiagnosis. Hypoxylin is absolutely not what we are looking at here. Here's how I know. Hypoxylin is a vascular wilt fungus. What that means, you're not going to see big mushrooms on it. You're not going to see the fruiting body on it so much as you are going to see the negative effects. One of the first signs or symptoms of hypoxylin, and I posted a few pictures here, is you see these little cankers. You see these little spots where that, by the way, that black spot is hypoxylin. Now that is lab confirmed in Carrollton, Texas. Very, very different from what we're looking at here. Now, to be a true diagnosis, what we would actually need is not visual observation. We need that third thing that I was talking about. We need the history. That's important. But we need the observation and we need a lab confirmation. That's the most important thing for a situation like this. We have to have that lab confirmation to be able to truly determine that this was indeed hypoxylin. Now, fortunately, hypoxylin is a very common tree disease, and let's just go through a couple of examples that I posted personally, some that indeed have been lab confirmed. And if you look here, you see those little black cankers there. Essentially, hypoxylin is a vascular wilt disease. Now, what that means is it's not a wood decay fungus that is going to eat the lignins and the cellulose, eat the woody tissue, and cause the tree to decay in that sense. It's actually going to be more like a clogged artery in humans. It's going to clog up the vascular tissue and cause the tree not to be able to transport minerals from the ground up into the canopy and vice versa. And so that black canker is really common. Now, let me just go here. I'm just going to look up Texas A&M hypoxylin. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Now, this is a really common disease here in Texas. And let me ask you a question. When you look at this, does that look anything like this? And I'm just going to tell you the answer. It's no. It's not even close. And I had several people come on here and argue with me and whatever. But the reality of the matter is those were misdiagnoses, plain and simple. Let's see. It's mostly caused by drought stress is a common reason why hypoxylin can get involved in a tree to begin with. But if you read here, it infects the sapwood of a tree. That's that vascular tissue we were talking about. Very important to know that. It can be defoliated by insects or leaf fungus, saturated soil, fill dirt, soil compaction, excavation in the root zone of the tree, removal of topsoil, disease, herbicide injury, drought is the most common one. But it's really important to know these things because here, this is fun. Healthy trees have a moisture content of 120 to 160%. It's difficult for hypoxylin canker to develop in wood that has a normal moisture content. So that's why I say most of the time your hypoxylin is going to get them in a tree that is drought stressed. So anyways, I wanted to go over that because it's so important. There's so much bad information out there when it comes to trees. And Douglas, I'm really sorry you're dealing with that because like you got some stupid answers. You got some great answers too, but you got some really dumb answers. And I'm sorry, like I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm gonna die on this hill, or I'm gonna unalive on this hill. Excuse me, Facebook algorithms. That's not hypoxylin. That to me looks like a fungal pathogen. It's not even a pathogen really. It's called Perinoporia. Let's just look that one up. Y'all tell me if this looks a little more like what we're looking at there, because I think it's pretty obvious. Perinoporia is a really common one. Look at that. Is that not just spot on what we're looking at here? Look at this. Myco key is pin soft. I don't know what that means. This is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing gills and frills on that. I'm not seeing a vascular wilt disease. And so when I look at that, it's like spot on. This is more what you're experiencing there. So yeah, I don't know. That's just a big old pet peeve of mine, y'all. But anyways, Michael's saying, just a reminder, wind throw is real and that structural pruning is what a true arborist does. Now, if you notice here on this is from a Ring camera, I'm guessing, and you got the news media outlet here. They're doing a little interview. But if you notice here, the tree has actually been lion's tail pruned in a way that leaves it very top heavy. And you can see here, there's a car back in the back here. It missed the house, thank God. There's a really saturated soil. Soil compaction is one of the leading causes of problems in trees. And whenever a tree breaks like that, right around the trunk tissue, that's usually because there's some sort of fungal pathogen that's come through and weakened the root system. Like let's put it this way, is if you have a broken pinky, not a big deal. If you have or a broken pinky toe, you can probably still walk because that's that far away from the actual support of your body. If you have a broken femur, you are not going to be able to walk because that is structurally supporting the tree. Well, right around, let's go to the drawing board on this one because this is fun, y'all. Right around the base of a tree is what's called the root plate. And right in here in this area surrounding the tree is that root plate area. Now, whenever damage or water saturation or mushrooms or whatever come in and they start decaying those big structural roots, that's when you get trees fall over. Now, don't hear me wrong, because sometimes you just get that much wind comes in and knocks a tree over. Whenever you get an excess of rain to come down along with an excessive rain windstorm, often trees that are perfectly healthy and strong can come crashing down to the ground. Very normal, not ideal. None of us want to deal with that, but it is what it is. That's part of life. But 9 times out of 10, you've got some sort of weakness right here at the base. And what you could do is you could take the trunk diameter, we call it DBH, diameter at breast height, or at 4.5 feet above the soil grade. You take that number, let's say it's 5 inches in diameter, and you multiply that by 5x. And what you get is 25 inches. So if you've got a 5-inch DBH tree, you want to go 2 feet or more, 25 inches. And for those of you that are mathematicians, 24 inches is 2 feet. But let's say you scale that up. Let's say you've got a 12-inch tree. Well, that's going to be 60 inches in DBH. That's going to be 5 feet. So instead of 5 inches, you would have 5 feet in either direction. And what happens is if any type of damage occurs, any type of decay, any type of mushroom, fungal pathogen, etc., and bear's-o-my happen in that area, the tree is going to be so much more prone to structural failure, to doing that which we are seeing in this photo. Michael, thank you so much for posting that, man. That's a great example of what not to do. You got saturation, you got over pruning, poor maintenance, a beautiful yard and a subdivision that's probably all got sprinklers, and now you have a tree that comes crashing down. Now, mind you, we did have tornadoes in that area. Not uncommon here in Texas, by the way, for those of you new to the area. We do get tornadoes on a regular basis, but I have had certain trees of mine that actually withstood EF4 tornadoes. And if you do it right, if you structurally prune the tree and then instead of just pruning it to make it look pretty, then you've got so much better of a chance of the tree surviving big storms like that. So Michael, great post. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to skip over for time's sake a lot of these. We talked about Mr. Parker's trees here. The where is it? Where'd it go? Yeah, the fungal pathogens on his trees. That's not hypoxylin 100%. I would be willing to go to court on that. But anyways, Darlene was asking, Darlene Chardom, hollow tree does not mean the tree is dead. By the way, that was not me that turned off comments on that. Yeah. Turn on commenting. There we go. Now comments are on. Yep. All right, and let's keep moving while you do that, Lucas. Matt Van Zandt, I need advice on someone who knows trees. I have a beautiful large tree, like 50 plus feet. It seems very healthy, but potentially leaning a little bit with the roots coming up on one side. Provides an amazing canopy for a backyard. I want somebody to check the health of the tree and make sure its leaning isn't a problem. It's the centerpiece of our backyard, but it's overgrown in its canopy. I want somebody to beautify by trimming branches and knowing what branches to cut and what to leave. I'm even considering putting lights way up in it. Well, before you do that, Matt, you got to make sure that it's structurally sound, because if you go spend $5,000 or whatever on tree lighting and then the tree falls over, it's not going to work out for you. My question, are these the same people that do these things? Any recommendations on someone who could do this all? I live in Oak Forest. I don't know what that is. Price is important, but I don't want to sacrifice quality. I don't need a Rolls Royce company. Well, maybe. Matt, I posted my website here. You can always look up isatreesaregood.com or .org and find a qualified arborist in your area. What you want to make sure is somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't just hire every certified arborist, y'all, because quite frankly, somewhere in the world is the world's worst doctor, and they're probably booked tomorrow. So make sure you're not the guy that hires that doctor. Make sure you're hiring a well-qualified professional. And man, I tell you, Keith hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what you want to look for. Good credentials. BCMA, Board Certified Master Arborist, Tree Risk Assessment Qualified, American Society of Consulting Arborist. These are the ones you want to look for. BCMA is going to have, I don't know, 5-10 times the knowledge that a regular certified arborist is going to have. A registered consulting arborist, by the way, BCMA gets you to about halfway to registered consulting arborist. And of course, tree risk assessment, just like it sounds, that qualification is specifically focusing on structural integrity of trees. I don't recommend checking out BBB because Better Business Bureau, humble opinion, is a scam. It's a paid for service. It's not actually a credential. That just means that I paid $700 to be a member of Better Business Bureau. By the way, anytime somebody goes on and negatively reviews my company as a registered BBB individual or company, I can go on and refute that. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to take that bad negative review down if I refute it. The website mentioned will, but ISA is good. Yeah, that's International Society of Arboriculture. Dave's right on that one. I'll, credit where credit's due. That's all we're going to say about that one. Moving on. This is the same question. Jay DeSalvo, we got to talk, bro. So here's a question that's fun. What happened? There it is. Leanne's asking, Matt Latham and others, thanks so much for your thoughts on the oak tree. As you can see, it's hovering over my house because I have a tree crew coming out tomorrow to remove the remaining ash trees. I'm so sorry, Leanne. Emerald ash borer is a nightmare. Sadly, I've lost about 15 mature trees due to emerald ash borer. It's such a pain. Emerald ash borer, so those of you that don't know, EAB came from China. Well, the problem is in China, the ash trees have the immunities to fight off EAB. So it's not an issue over there. Those same beetles come to America, and they all of a sudden have free range access to trees that have never, ever, 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 ever seen this pest. And so emerald ash borer is a nightmare here in America, and it is going to kill 90 to 99% of all, or maybe even more, of all the ash trees in America. And so it's very sad. If you've got an ash tree, emamectin benzoate is your only option. You need to do that as a trunk injection, as a preventative, not as a Band-Aid. You've got to do it in advance. That will 100% of the time preserve the tree. It'll save your tree from emerald ash borer 100% of the time. But if you don't do it, it's game over, man. What's up?
Nothing. I'll just. My niece is cooking something. She turned on the burner, and I hear
Click. You're funny. All right, cutting the oak down will make me feel really bad. Thanks again. We've already talked about this, Leanne, but I'll go ahead and cover it right now. Glad to have you as well. Thanks for being here, first and foremost. Nora is right. Nora's a true professional as well. It's always been leaning, probably okay. Trees are like humans. Whenever they're leaning, there is gravity pulling down on that lean. What that does is it puts pressure on the trunk. What that does is it puts pressure on the roots. And as a result, the tree will put pressure to strengthen itself. Just like when you and I go to the gym, we're working our muscles tear on a microscopic level. Now our body's filling the gaps. That's why they say drink protein shakes afterwards, because that's where you're going to build that solid muscle. At least, sorry, not to sound sexist here, but we have this wonderful drug as a male called testosterone, and it helps us in that sense. Women have it a little bit different, but same basic principle. The more you move, the more you work out, the stronger you're going to be. Trees are the same. The more they're leaning, the stronger. And a lot of times you'll see big, solid woody tissue on the backside of a leaning tree. That's what that is. It's tree tissue. It's tree muscle. And so when I look at this, Leanne, I see a healthy tree. I see a tree that's maybe been raised more than it should have been. And for those of you that are wondering, do we actually get into the nitty gritty and look at these things on an individual basis? Yes, absolutely. And I actually posted where is it? Did it not go on there? Anyways, if it didn't, I'm going to have to, here we go. There it is. So Leanne, if you're watching this, check this picture out. I actually made a few marks on here on where I personally would prune it, at least knowing what little I know based on the picture you gave us. But these might be a good starting place. I'm always happy to get on a digital arborist consultation. We can look at it in person and really get a good, solid pruning plan. But if you notice here, a lot of these are just reduction cuts. We're removing the weight and the leverage and at least some of the height on these limbs overhanging your roof. That will allow the tree to catch up. Now, I did notice who said that? Who said that? Sorry. Hydration is key, y'all. I'm talking a lot here. Somebody mentioned, aerating soil, adding biochar, doing a reliant basil bark drench. I don't know what that means. Reliant, I think, is an insecticide. And applying Cambistat. Cambistat is a wonderful tree drug, you guys. It is a tree growth regulator. Lucas and I actually spent a little time yesterday, and we did, 40-something trees on a tree preservation project that we're on. And we basically applied Cambistat prior to construction, because what we know is Cambistat is paclobutrazol is the actual chemical name, and paclobutrazol does one very, very important thing. It stops the outward growth of the branch, and what that does is all of the resources that the tree gets over the next 3 to 5 years is how long it lasts. Is all of those resources are going to go towards improving immune functions, strengthening woody tissue, improving the overall health and vitality of the tree, improving drought, stress, tolerance, and improving rooting structure of the tree. So that is one thing. It's not necessary, Leanne, but it is certainly beneficial. Josh, wonderful point. Way to do awesome arboriculture. Cambistat's one of my favorites. I'm not a big fan of using unnecessary chemicals. I'm a very crunchy granola person. If you couldn't tell by the cool hat, I'm very hippie-ish, if you will. My wife and I eat very, very organically, but also sometimes modern medicine goes a long ways. So Cambistat's a great resource. Christmas lights, a lot to get excited about, kinda. I mean, it looks like you just got a bunch of small trees there, Jay. Jared Errand is asking, this red oak has been like this for a few years, visited by a local arborist, but I'd like your opinions as well. Good call. It's always good to get multiple opinions. Make your own judgment, Jared. What's likely causing this, and how can I help to treat it so the tree has a long, healthy life? Or is it likely fatal in just a matter of time? Overall, it appears healthy aside from the first picture. Let's take a look at it a little closer. Okay, so yeah, obviously some trunk damage here, Jared. That's not ideal. It's not fire, George. I'm sorry. That is just structural damage, mechanical damage. What I do see though, Jared, is you've got a lot of that's not true, Michael. It actually did heal. It's in the process of healing right now. Trees, by the way, for those of you watching, they don't heal, they seal in a sense. There's actually, I got to get the book. There's a second edition of Compartmentalization of Decay in Trees. I'm really curious to see what the most modern research has to say about it. I have my own ideas, etc. But essentially, something damaged this tree. I imagine mechanical. It could be some sort of fungal pathogen, but the tree indeed is healing and sealing, doing exactly what it's supposed to do. That's a good sign. Let's see what everybody else is saying, though. Oh, wow. I'm not going to read everybody's. Lawnmower weed eater. I would remove this tree ASAP. I don't know that I'd do that. You need a closer look. Don't wait for a storm to come through and blow it over and do damage. Take it out while it's smaller. No, just make the tree smaller is one alternative solution. It's just been too long to start treating it now. That's not true. Start with a healthy new tree. Not true. Agree, red oak root system's not that great against winds, and this decay makes it worse. Cut it now just to be more expensive in the future. Some sort of ant. That's not true. Lucas got a question. What you got, Lucas?
So I'm looking at this the tree. It has a lot of green foliage.
It does.
Would it just be better to treat it with some, injections?
Yes, that's kind of my thought exactly. Here's the thing. Let me just go, because I'm reading the reviews. I'm reading everybody else's answers. I'm going to just give you my humble opinion. This tree is in fine shape. Overall, health-wise, structurally, it needs a little bit of work. Now, you've got a healthy tree, but you don't have a structurally sound tree. So what you need to do, Jared, you need to make it structurally sound. There's really three ways to do that. Number one, you've got to structurally prune it. You've got to reduce the leverage, the canopy height. That takes some really specialized knowledge and skills. You do not want a regular, boring old certified arborist touching this tree. They're not going to have the skill set to do it right. The other thing, number two, is you've got to stop the growth, allow the tree to catch up. And number three, you've got to give it some extra resources to improve the overall health and vitality of the tree. What I'm seeing is absolutely spot on what you want to see. You got new growth on the sides here on the top. This tree is doing exactly what trees do, which is compartmentalization. Now, I did notice at some point, some comments said, are you going to have some heart rot decay? Guess what, guys? There's trees that are 1,000 years old. Do you think that they have zero decay in them? No. They have probably 50% or more decay in them. I have cut down trees that were 400, 500, 600-year-old. I've never cut down a 1,000-year-old tree. Lord willing, I won't ever have to. Although, if somebody's got to do it, not opposed. Hey, what's up? Oh, man. What's up? How's it been? Milwaukee's been pounded by ice and snow. I'm sorry to hear that, dude. Texas has been hot. It's actually like 45 degrees right now, and hence the hat. I love it, y'all. I love it. Hey, thanks for joining us, Milwaukee. I appreciate you being here, bro. But anyways, so you've got the structure. You got to prune it to maintain the structure. Maybe even consider some structural support systems like a guy wire, or if you can cable it to another tree. Definitely a red oak. I can see the new sprouts coming up here. That's a brilliant thing. Tells me the tree is doing what it's supposed to. You've definitely got you got to stop the bleeding, though. Part of that is pruning. Part of that is if you're watering excessively, stop that garbage. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure the soil dries out prior to irrigating. You've got to stunt the growth, which can be done with paclobutrazole, Cambistat, Shortstop are two brand names there. And then, of course, you've got to give it some extra resources. That's very, very important. Now, I like biostimulant treatments. I don't like doing fertilizers because that's an exact science. You really got to get down to the nitty gritty and find out what's in the soil, what's in the tree, and how to supplement that. And you're never going to get it perfect. Like, God didn't design a forest to be perfect. He designed it with stop checks to make sure that the right systems are in place to give the trees what they need, not so much give it exactly the right portion. That's where hydroponics come in. But God didn't design a forest to be hydroponically active. He designed it to be microbially active. Those microbes are going to give the tree everything it needs. So feed the microbes, feed the soil, feed the tree, stop the growth, and make sure to get on a good structural support program. I'm happy to, by the way, do the. Here's my website. I'm happy to give you a good one over, second opinion, third opinion, whatever it happens to be, 10,000th opinion. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's nothing that can health of the tree will probably continue to be fine. However, the structural integrity of the tree is a concern and will become a bigger issue as that area decays. In a nutshell, I'd be more worried about it failing in the future versus its overall health. I agree, actually, Matt. Spot on, dude. You seem to be a really knowledgeable arborist, man. I'd love to connect with you in person. Maybe have a phone conversation or whatever. But trees like this can live like this and be quite stable for 100 years. I agree, Tim. Love it, dude. I agree with your assessment for the most likely causes. Additionally, I would make sure irrigation is not hitting the trunk. That's a really good point. Tim is spot on there. Trees can live like this and be quite stable for 100 plus years. There's a lot of research on that. Robert Gay, I don't know what you're talking about. Bonfire damage, see it quite often. That seems like conjecture and speculation. But you live in UK, so you're probably wiser than us stupid Americans. But fun American joke there. Y'all, I'm going to have to get going. Let's go through one more, though. By the way, IIPTC, who are you, man? I know we've talked before. Been plowing for 12 inches, maybe since Friday. Wow. It's Tuesday, bro. That's like 4 days later. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. See, I can count, y'all. And you can count on me. There's a Happy Gilmore joke in there somewhere. All right, so I love this one, y'all, and I bought 2 trees today, you guys, and I am going to bonsai them, but I bought them not so much so I can bonsai them. One is a Persian lime, and another is a Texas lilac or a vitex tree. But I bought them because I had to go to Home Depot to get the trees to make sure they were terrible, terrible, terrible quality trees just for you guys. Spent like $100 on this. Not a whole lot, to be honest. But I bought these trees because Christopher Cronkite here is dealing with a consistent issue that I see over and over and over and over and over again, y'all. And what we're talking about is root-bound trees. This is disgusting. This is poor practices at the nursery, and it drives me nuts, you guys. This is a very easily solved problem. All we have to do is step the tree up into a bigger container, make sure the root flares are exposed. Check this out, y'all. Give me 1 second here. You have to stare at me for a second. Just like in tree care, we have American National Standards. Where is it? ANSI standards for tree care. Nurserymen also have standards, you guys. ANSI Z60.1 plus. That is technically it's a requirement for all nurserymen. One of those standards is, let's go back to Mr. Cronkite's picture here. One of those standards is to make sure that this balling up of the roots does not happen. But you can see here, it definitely happened. So, Christopher, wherever you bought this tree, I'm sorry, you got a dud. But that's not to say you can't fix the problem, because realistically, you can. Fortunately, that's where those ANSI A300 standards come in. Hold on, let me get those standards too, because this is fun, y'all. I'm so excited about this book, you guys. I know I'm such a big old tree nerd. ANSI A300 standards for tree care. You can see I use it a lot and bend the daylights out of it. One of these days, maybe I'll cut all of the pages out and laminate the whole thing. But for now, it's just a piece of junk. So when we're looking at ANSI A300, I think it's page 72 is where it starts. Transplanting and planting standards. So if you look here, installation. The base of the root flare shall be at or slightly above the final grade. There's actually stop checks in the Tree Guys standards to make sure that those poor planting or those poor nursery stock standards are mitigated and corrected wherever there's problems. So you want to make sure when you're hiring somebody to plant your tree, or if you get a tree, that you do it right, that you get a good quality stock, and that you make sure that it's set up for failure, for success to begin with. But if you don't, make sure you got the right tree guy on your side, knows all these ANSI A300 standards and how to properly plant a tree. By the way, ANSI A300, that's great. There's a really, really cool website, or not website, but a series of books called Best Management Practices that are put out by the International Society of Arboriculture that are essentially create the how-tos on the ANSI A300 standards. So those best management practices are how to implement the ANSI A300 standards. So ISA best management practices for planting and transplanting. That's a really important one as well. And with that, you guys, I'm going to make that video probably tomorrow and post it up on the interwebs tomorrow. But it's all about what if you get a situation like Christopher's got. And I know a lot of people plant trees in the winter. This is one of my favorite times to plant a tree. But when you get something and you pull it out of the container, it looks like this. You absolutely have to amend that. And in these videos, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So stay tuned, you guys. Again, thank you all so much for being here. I'm sorry we're cutting it a little bit short tonight. It's just been a crazy week getting back after Thanksgiving. But again, I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you all so much for being here. We love you guys, and we're here to help you take care of the trees you love and live around. And of course, if you have questions about your trees or want a second opinion, we're happy to hop on a digital arborist consultation here on the on the interwebs at arboristondemand.com. We do this all over the United States of America, and believe it or not, all over the world. We've had people call in from Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Austria, Ireland. We've had Canadians actually that we're working on some litigation cases for. But we're all over the place, and we'd love to help you out no matter where you are. Decide and make the right decision about your trees, because quite frankly, you can't replace them, especially once they get real big. Trees are a wonderful asset, an important part of our lives, and I'd love to be the guy, or we'd love to be the company to help you take care of and manage them properly. So hit us up on the web at arboristondemand.com, and of course, have a great evening. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you next time.